Good afternoon. I'm Ray Tatter, and this is LiveWire, an interesting LiveWire coming to you from my dining room, usually from the studio. But since last May or last March, none of the theaters in our town have been able to program inside their theater spaces. And it's an interesting time, and an interesting time in terms of what theater companies are doing right now. I mean, in many ways, there's this time is a silver lining for them. Even though they're not being able to put plays on for you, they are developing programs. And so with me in the studio today, we're going to talk to Lindsay Birch, who is a writer, director, and associate director of the BStreetTheatre. And the topic will be Reimagine at the BStreetTheatre. So stay tuned for LiveWire right after this. Welcome to LiveWire. I am Ray Tatter, and with me online is Lindsay Birch, who's a writer, director, and associate director of the BStreetTheatre. And also with her is Latrice Madkins. Hi, Latrice, who is the Equity, Diversity, and Community Inclusion Director. Ooh, sounds like a mouthful. Sounds like I'd run away from that. What? But you chose to work in the American theater. Ooh. Welcome to you both. I'm really interested in how the theater, people really want to get out. They want to be in the theater. They want to see plays. They want to be part of the programming of your theater companies in Sacramento. But right now, they can't very well do that, although you are doing programming. Let's talk about those aspects and how this time is changing the BStreetTheatre.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Thanks so much for having us. Really, really glad to be here. Lindsay, Associate Artistic Director at the BStreetTheatre. So yes, this has been a huge change for us, like so many other theaters in the regional circuit, and of course in New York and the other major markets. We've shifted from in-person productions, performances, to a completely virtual realm where we have weekly programming that's happening, anywhere from 4 to 6 nights a week on Zoom. It's all free. And I think I mentioned this to you, previously when we were chatting before the show started. It's a chance to get. It's sad because we're not able to do what we love and what this amazing theater, which is the virtual background behind me, was built to do. But it's there's a silver lining in the sense that we can take a break from that constant hamster wheel of producing shows to really reflect on the organization, what it is, and what it's going to be now and in the future.
That's great. That's great. And Latrice, your program area, you had been the producer, director, pusher of the touring program that went to schools. Is that right?
That's correct. I was the school tour administrator for the past 5 years, 6 years now. We did actually just have one, a virtual school tour in the fall as well. So you know much about that school tour program, Ray. So it was a great time to bring in, 200 to serve 200,000 students, over the last few years. We still, of course, these schools are dependent on having B Street there year after year for their assemblies. We have a lot of students who are writing plays. We have still been receiving plays from these students during this pandemic time. So that's been just wonderful to still stay connected. And Greg Alexander, our education manager as well, has still been in the classroom working with the students, doing playwriting workshops and bringing in other people to do those workshops with him over this pandemic. So the school tour is, it's a beast, as we say, from a 5-person troupe to go out to do 12 shows a week, for 8 to 9 weeks.
Oh, I love it. I could do that. What school are we at now? I don't know. You're on.
Right. I know that you know all about the program.
Ray knows all. Ray was there in the very beginning, so he knows all about it.
Oh, the Busfields walked into this very room one day, and we were holding a meeting of the Access of Theater Alliance, and they said, "Now we're going to bring a youth theater here, and we're going to be in 15 counties by next year." And I thought, "Oh yeah," and they were. They were.
That's them.
In 15 counties in Northern California. It was an amazing experience to watch them do that. And they did. And so it's here we are a few decades later talking about diversity, an important thing. I think California Arts Council, in the early days in the 80s and 90s really did develop a good, strong outreach and in all of its programming. And I think it did a pretty good job. And I think a lot of theater companies are now really moving in the right direction, and the B Street Theater seems to be doing that just as well. And what are those programs? How do those programs reach out? That's my key question there. How does it reach out to the community to find potential actors who have some experience, and to reach out to audiences? I mean, you have the audience and the actors and the director and all of the plays and playwrights as well, who write about the changing times. How do you do that?
So
okay, I'll be back in.
as you know, I mean, just conversations around diversity and inclusion can be uncomfortable. So especially, in workplaces and in the arts industry for sure, where the access has been very limited. So what we were able to do is we have company members who were doing virtual programming when the pandemic hit. So once we mounted that virtually, what else can we add to what we have? Because that's just the B Street's heartbeat. What else? What else? Lindsay is always looking for new playwrights, new works as well. And so when we decided to launch this Reimagine program, we have one of our company members, Danielle Monet Truitt, who is right here from Sacramento, Valley High School student and Sac State graduate. She has been very instrumental in bringing talent to the B Street's platform for the Reimagine. So she looks, globally, since we're, in this virtual space. And then I, in turn, work with her to bring in the community. And so that's part of what, when this title was being kind of dreamed of, is how can we bring the community in, because we know we have, the talent is right here in our community as well. And we didn't really have to look too far. So we try to do a balance of who do we have, how can we put people and mount actors on our virtual platform. And we, basically have these discussions about, are we hitting diversity? Are we hitting inclusion? Are we hitting racial equity? Because it's very layered, as you know.
Yeah.
It is. And I want to add that, there's, I think the conversation surrounding equity, diversity, and inclusion is a complicated one, especially when you're speaking about predominantly white institutions, which B Street is, and most arts organizations are. So when you're doing these inclusive programs, you don't want to be deleterious. You don't want to cause harm. And so I think it's equally important to note that Latrice's promotion into her role, her leadership, also the efforts to get other leaders of color on the board, on the staff. That's equally as important as the art that is seen on the stage or in the programming to really shift the organization towards being multicultural and anti-racist and inclusive. So it's not just about what's seen outwardly, but also about the leadership within on both the board and the staff level.
From the board all the way down to somebody who pushes a broom in the across the stage, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's a huge piece of it, and of course, it's almost. Some people say that, it's very easy to look at audience as the first piece because it's obviously we're an audience-driven industry, but potentially audience is the last piece once those other changes are set in motion, to where those people who might, who are not, they've never felt at home at the theater, they've never felt as though it was accessible to them, or they go to a theater show and the audience is all people who frankly don't look like them, getting to a place where it feels like their home just as much as it feels like my home, Latrice's home, the home of our company members and our other staff.
Oh, you brought some video. Let's have a look at that and get a sense of how we can move on with this talk. Wow, that's a lot of programming, and also actually a good cross section of the community, old farts like me, and as well as young, tiny little people.
Yes, it's. I think that's one of the greatest joys of working at the Sophia, the B Street Theater, is just the range of people that we get to see come through the doors, and even on the virtual programming, there's everybody from older to younger to people who want to see music, to comedy, to dance, to plays. It's really a joy to get to experience so many different parts of the community.
In the development of, let's say, your next real season, your on-stage season, are you working with playwrights now to pull in some nice plays, comedies, tragedies, social dilemmas?
Yeah, it's a great question, as things are for everyone, not just so many people. It's very uncertain right now. We hope to be having some sort of theatrical production by the end of this calendar year. That might be a long shot, but we're hoping for it. And so I think right now, instead of saying, you are commissioned to write this play, or we really want to put this play in our season, what we've been focusing on, at least from my perspective, is the real development of relationships with playwrights. I've met and worked with so many playwrights during this pandemic that I may never have had a chance to get to be acquainted with because of the wonders of the virtual world. They could be anywhere through programs like Reimagine, our new play brunch, so many other things. So I think it's really about developing those relationships. And so when the time comes, the decision becomes easier. You have all these folks who you have in your wheelhouse to draw from, and who knows what a season will look like in the future. Is it going to go back to being 7 shows? Probably not immediately. It may only be 3 shows, 4 shows. And so, we have our work cut out for us determining what is the best, most important stories to tell when we're able to tell them again.
Yeah, is there? We talked a little bit about that dilemma. There is what stories do we tell coming out of this? And what? How are you? How do you challenge your audience? Because people are going to have expectations coming out of the coronavirus horror. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's a difficult challenge. I think I mentioned to you before that there's not to sort of dichotomize it completely, but there's different camps of artists. There's, I think, one group of individuals who says, we need to come out of this pandemic, and I don't think anyone disagrees that now is the opportunity, now is the time to remake, reimagine, as we say, what our industry is and can be. That now is the time to do that. So therefore, when we come out of this pandemic, the shows, they need to be innovative. They ideally would be new works or lesser known works that are going to be inclusive and reflective of the issues of our society and community. But then I think on the other side, maybe I think this is maybe just within one individual, they could be feeling both of these things. Then on the other side, there's this sort of fear. Do we need to come back with an old chestnut? A barefoot in the park. It's something that is going to bring people out and it's going to sell. There's some a classic, an American classic, a Shakespeare. A previous bestseller. So I think that's the sort of dilemma. And how do you get people in the door when the doors can reopen? Because there's going to be enough barriers without. I don't want to see that play.
Well, that's also true, but then there's also the potential of new audiences. Like you were talking earlier about reaching out into the community in terms of casting and participation in all kinds of ways. New audiences do spring forth when there are plays that deal with issues that they can relate to, I think. And I can see that happening. And I know that B Street has done many new plays. And I found that always laudable.
Yes. And we are, Ray, just to add to that, that's where we are right now, are still in those discussions and those topics of, there's, definitely intersectional divides, with mental health and inclusion, even with diversifying, our people of color, our works, our casting. So looking through the perspective of, sharing, the power at the top, making sure that the top, the middle, and the end is all diversified in many ways. Like we said before, it's layered because, this diversity and inclusion, it's a societal issue. So not only is B Street, in the arts industry, having these discussions to see what things will look like I think when we do more work and we continue to have more conversations about the culture of B Street, what is that shift going to look like? The transformation in our programming. Once we have those things more defined and maybe bringing more people of color into different areas, then we can begin to rebuild and to know what will go out. What are we going to put out? What are we doing for our community, and not just for the community, but for the arts industry as a whole, because we always want to stay relevant. We always want the new works. There's so many stories to be told. Yes, we can tell those, from the history that has been left out, from the Black history that's been left out. And when we get through with, this COVID quarantine, we'll see what we have on the other side. So we'd love to share with you when we have more of a definition of where we're going.
Good, Latrice. So come on back and we'll move along on that issue.
Well, and I think you're a highly successful longtime theater artist, Ray, and so it's some people think it's bombastic or it's lofty, but theater it can speak to people. It can transcend barriers, and I think that's really what we want to focus on is when we come back is yes, there are stories that are lovely and wonderful and are not going to rock the boat in any sort of way, but how do you find those stories that need to be told that are going to help people it's such a beautiful and well told story that it does affect change.
Yes,
that it does cause people to look both externally, that's the easy part, but look internally, and that's the exciting place that I think we're in as an organization, as an industry.
Absolutely. So are there advisory boards that you have? How is it structured, Latrice? Do you have a kind of a separate advisory board for equity, diversity, and community inclusion? How's that work?
Yes, and so currently we have within our skeletal staff, we have our Black and Indigenous people of color, where we either have conversations, we have debriefings, we also have the advisory board. Well, for me, going to this team to develop, our certain, pledges, and here's some new policies. Let's take a look at this, but let's go ahead and see, reaching out to make sure that the challenges that we see, that we want to make sure that that we're not just self-identifying those challenges with the same voices. And so we have people that are coming in to listen to what we have, and the listening part, we're still there. I will say some organizations what they call listening sessions. Yes. We haven't stopped those. We haven't stopped those because we all still need to listen. So that's where we are. And as we continue, we have our EDI advisory council is what we have internally to make sure that, we're all in agreement.
Good. And how does that float up into the development, the program and product development people? Mm-hmm. Lindsay?
Yeah. I mean, I think, we're the service industry, what we give to the community ultimately, other than we're very, very humbled and blessed to have this amazing, beautiful space, which hopefully us and others will be able to get back into. But other than the facility, which we can rent out or give to people at a discounted rate, what we really have to give to the community is our product and is our voice as artists. And so, the conversations that Latrice is leading and that we're having as a staff and as an organization really focus on, the product itself, because obviously that's what people see, but then the process that gets to that product. What are the casting practices? What are the play selection practices? What are the practices for hiring directors, designers, recruiting new board members who are going to have fiduciary and say in the organization? So it's really, it's very multifaceted, but when you have a group of well-meaning, imperfect people, which is, what I think B Street is, and what most organizations I think are folks that have intentions but are imperfect. They need guidance, and just to say, don't go. And this is what Latrice will say, and others will say, that just, don't always go to the same people. What we have to do is broaden our network of people that we trust and admire and believe in across the board, so
Great.
that it's not just because it's an unfortunate reality that oftentimes the people who are in our network are the people that look like and think like and have similar lives to ourselves. So that's really what we're working on. And in some ways it's very lofty, intellectual, big picture, and then other ways it's how many people of color did you reach out to for that particular role, as an actor, as a director, before you offered it to a white artist. So it can be anywhere from big picture to quantifiable.
Yeah, they're showing some pictures right now, and we have about like a minute left. And this is where I turn it back to you and I say, did we miss anything? Did you want to say something that I didn't ask?
I will say, watch Reimagined every Thursday at 7 p.m. Streams on Zoom through BStreet.org, BStreetTheatre.org, and it's on Facebook as well.
Wow. Okay. And thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. Check out our website, BStreetTheatre.org. We've got free virtual programming most nights of the week. And we can't wait to see everyone's faces in the audience and in the lobby.
That's right. There's a picture of the lobby on the screen right now. Okay.
Yeah.
At least the outside part. That's where you need to head to, folks.
Yep. And there's the theater. We can't wait for that to be full, or even just have some people in it. But in the meantime, our virtual programming is a great way to connect to us and with our artists in our community. It's everywhere from funny and silly to poignant and important. So please check it out. And I want to thank you, Ray, and the folks at LiveWire and Access Sacramento for having us.
Thank you, Latrice, and thank you very much, Lindsay. We will hope to see your faces here again sometime in the future with some interesting information and development of your theater company. We'll see you. This is all the time we have for today. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 live with Ray Tatter. That's me. And